welcome back to our self-series. This is class number 2, and today we're talking about breathing exercises. Nothing new, right? Again, nothing new, just a different perspective on so many things that are already out there. So, without further ado, let's get going, okay? So we have the exercises we're going to cover today, and we're going to have the lovely and very beautiful Jill Michael demonstrating these things while I show the patterns of the breathing. And that will be, we'll do Dan Ho, which is also, Ho means breathing. Dan is an energy center. Dan is essentially means an energy center. This is energy, center, and breathing. And so, but the main area that we're going to focus on when we say danjon, we mean the lower danjon, which if you put your thumbs in your navel, drop your hands down, focus right in the center, and inside 2 inches, that would be your lower danjon. Okay, that's the main thing that we're talking about. There's also the middle danjon, and that's at the heart center or heart chakra. And we have the upper danjon, that is essentially the third eye chakra. Okay, so we're going to do Dan Ho breathing. We're also going to do chest breathing, which again is another Dan center. And the last thing we're going to do is isolated skin and or organ breathing, because we want to really look at, a way to increase oxygenation and increase waste elimination. So while we increase oxygenation, that comes with breathing. We're going to talk a little bit about how the chakras are involved, how the allopathic organ systems are involved, and the 5 elements or 5 phases. Okay? So we've got all the chakras involved if we're focused with our breathing. So again, our brain can be a good tool to add to to any exercise that we do. It brings awareness and focus, essentially increased mental focus. And that is one of the things that ties us into the different types of chi that we might be working with, as well as the different effects when we look at things from an allopathic organ system as well. So the chakras that will be involved, well, think about breathing. Where does it occur? Predominantly in the lungs. Okay, so we're looking at the heart chakra where that's concerned. Okay, so predominantly in the lungs, so we're looking at, and we've got accessory muscles for breathing. How many muscles do you think we use to breathe with? Anybody?
All of your muscles.
All of your muscles. This muscle's used to breathe with, not so much. So no, not all of the muscles, but there are at least 20. Several that, like the diaphragm, which is located in here, just underneath the rib cage, that one's obvious, right? Intercostal muscles, those are kind of obvious as well. But things like accessory breathing muscles might be the scalenes, right here underneath, on top of the collarbone. It might be the serratus muscles. We also we don't consider the rhomboid muscles as part of a breathing apparatus. However, it would hold the scapula still while we're breathing, so that the serratus muscles have something. If we're using forced inspiration, then those muscles have something to pull on. So it's really quite amazing to see how many different areas are involved. Right now we're talking about the chakra system, so it makes sense that all the chakras involved from here to here, if we're breathing properly, abdominal breathing, then of course that's going to be in place. Is breathing a necessary function in the human body? Yes. For survival, poof, there we have the root chakra. Can we use it for with our crown chakra, with communication with source? Yes, according to some Asian teachings. So Korean to be specific. So if that's the case, we've got all the chakras involved. Sweet. You know, some of them are accessory chakras, but many of them just make sense. Why would the throat chakra be involved? One, because of the accessory muscles. And two, could be because the phrenic nerve that controls the actions of the diaphragm comes from C3, C4, and C5 in the cervical spine. So there we have our connection to the throat chakra. Allopathic organ systems, look what we're doing. We're increasing oxygenation. We're increasing waste elimination in the body by breathing. This is just a basic thing that we're talking about with breathing in and breathing out. A good source to look at just to see how oxygen and carbon dioxide diffuse into and out of capillaries. Just look, you could probably find any anatomy and physiology book that really helps you see what's actually happening with the alveoli, which are the air sacs at the end of the breathing tubes within your lungs. That's actually where gas exchange occurs. So essentially, blood touches almost every single tissue. Oxygen and carbon dioxide diffuses into every single tissue, and so therefore we actually touch on all allopathic organ systems within the human body, as well as the animals. Yay, our little four-legged and winged friends. Okay, the 5 elements and phases, we touch on all of those again, right? We've got metal element with the lungs. That makes sense. Fire element, we're oxygenating blood, touches on the heart. Okay, what else? We've got earth element. We're tying that in with the Asian teachings of Jung-Chi or Jung-Ki. And that is obtained through diet and breathing, one of the 3 types of Chi or Ki. What else do we have? We've got wood element, right? We touched on earth. We've got wood element. As we breathe, the diaphragm is right next to the liver. So we have an ability to help detoxify the liver with either Chi or Ki, or we can do skin or organ breathing. So this is going to be really useful for that. So we've got all of our elements in there. Water element as well, which brings us to waste elimination and affecting the pH of our blood and our tissue. The kidneys affect the pH of the tissue. Kidneys are here. And the lungs affect the pH of tissue. By breathing out carbon dioxide, we're actually making our blood more basic, or what we call raising our pH. So it's kind of neat. So what happens when we breathe in and out from an allopathic viewpoint? Well, one thing that we can do is that we can increase ATP production. ATP stands for adenosine triphosphate. Let me grab some notes here. I'm thinking of a speech that was given recently that's making me laugh. Okay. So we can increase ATP production. Okay, when we look at ATP production, or adenosine triphosphate, we can make ATP in several ways. We're looking at glycolysis, right? Glycolysis, glycose, glycogen, lysis means to cleave, right? Okay, to cleave. So glycolysis essentially cleaves a glucose molecule right in half, and from that we get 2 ATP. Okay, ATP is essentially the currency that we would use in our cells to run anything. It's our cash, it's our currency, it's our energy. So we can make 2 ATP just from breaking down a glucose molecule. That happens in the cytoplasm of the cell, in the fluid within the cell. But from there, things mosey on into mitochondria. And in the mitochondria, and through the electron transport chain, we can make, well, first we go to the citric acid cycle. We got 2 turns through that, 2 ATP. So we got 2 ATP from glycolysis, 2 ATP from the citric acid cycle, which requires oxygen. And then, I don't know, it's 32 to 34 ATP in the electron transport chain. So without oxygen, we can make 2 ATP. With oxygen, we can make up to 38 ATP. So when we add oxygen to the picture, it increases our ATP production, and then therefore increases our energy. And so one thing that breathing exercises can do is to help increase the number of mitochondria. They actually hold their own DNA, which is only passed down by your mother. It's really quite fascinating. They can actually divide. They respond to supply and demand. So you find them in areas where you need more energy. So you may find them in the muscles. And you'll also find a greater concentration, not only in the muscles, but also in the liver. Because that's where we make most of our energy. That's where we need most of that energy. So that's one useful thing. Another thing that ATP production can do. Was there any questions about that? This is kind of it's a complex system, but are there any questions on this? Nothing? Okay. Alrighty there. So I just want to make sure that we've got enough information. Okay, so what happens if we don't have enough oxygen to make more ATP? Well, we get lactic acid buildup. And lactic acid buildup can essentially, it makes our system more acidic, which is where the exhale comes in, right? Well, that's where we can affect pH. Okay, but we get lactic acid buildup. Why? Well, look at the muscles. The muscles need ATP to actually contract. So if you look up in your anatomy and physiology book, pull that little bugger out, and that's probably a big bugger. Could be anywhere from this size to that size to this size, depending on how much in depth you would like to go. But look at the theory of muscle contraction. It takes 1 ATP to contract a muscle fiber. It takes 2 ATP for relaxation. So keeping that in mind, it doesn't make sense. It's like, wow, it takes more energy to relax than it does to actually contract a muscle. And so one of the things that we can do to help ourselves feel better in case we've got lactic acid buildup in our muscles because we're not utilizing the energy we have efficiently, or we don't have enough energy to use or utilize, then we make one of 2 things. We want to make more mitochondria so we can make more ATP, or we want to add more oxygen in order to, again, be able to make more ATP. And so it's kind of interesting. I wanted to read something from Hole's Anatomy and Physiology book. It says human muscle cells that are working so strenuously that their production of pyruvic acid exceeds the oxygen supply begin to produce lactic acid. In this condition of oxygen debt, the muscle cells are forced to utilize solely the anaerobic pathway. Anaerobic means without oxygen, which provides fewer ATPs per glucose molecule than does the aerobic reactions of cellular respiration. Aerobic is with oxygen. The accumulation of lactic acid contributes to the feeling of muscle fatigue and cramps. Walking after cramping at the end of a race can make a runner feel better by hastening the depletion of lactic acid. We're actually moving it into our blood system, and we're finding a way to filter it out, whether it's by breathing or through the kidneys in the urine. Lactic acid formation occurs in an interesting variety of circumstances. Coaches measure lactic acid levels in swimmers' and sprinters' blood to assess their physical condition. Lactic acid accumulates to triple the normal levels in the bloodstreams of children who vigorously cry when they are being prepared for surgery, but not in children who are calm and not crying. This suggests that lactic acid formation accompanies stress. So this is an interesting thing because breathing exercises can also promote relaxation. And the more relaxed we are, the more air we can actually fill our lungs with. And so once again, being calm and assertive, is a good way to live and exist. Okay, now, so now let's jump to the 3 types of chi or ki, as I was taught by some Dawn Masters, by Dr. Lee, when I was studying with some Dawn Masters in 1998 and 99, actually through 2002 and 3. So we've got 3 types of chi. We've got Wong Ki, or chi, and that's innate. That's what's given to us by our parents. Okay? In last Thursday's class, we talked about that being called Jing Qi in Chinese medicine. Or something like, or similar to this, can be stored in the kidneys, okay, with water element. Another type of qi would be zhong qi, or qi, and that has to do with stamina and strength. That's where we have the tie-in with the ATP. That's kind of cool, okay? So, but with that, we've got, it's associated with our diet and with breathing. So we get some stamina and strength or energy through the foods that we eat, as well as breathing. The third type of qi, or ki, is jin qi, or ki. And that means, jin means true or genuine. So that comes from pure or cosmic consciousness. And I'm sure you've heard of many of the studies out there talking about meditation and being able to reverse or halt the aging process through meditation. That's what we're talking about there. Okay, but with this, not only with teachings that I learned with this group of individuals, they say the same thing in Western medicine. You've heard about COX inhibitors, so that's cyclooxygenase. Again, we've got oxygen involved. And the thing about COX inhibitors, COX-1, COX-2, COX-3, is that we've got NSAIDs, our non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, aspirin, things like that. Those are considered COX-2 inhibitors. Those are the things that we use for pain regulation or decreasing pain. So what happens with that is arachidonic acid gets stopped in mid-cycle because the cyclooxygenase, as a protein, as an enzyme, is not allowed to act to change the arachidonic acid into prostaglandins. What are prostaglandins? Prostaglandins are the things that are provided by the cells from the cellular membrane to cause inflammation. Okay, well, if we're causing inflammation, prostaglandins, they're considered autocrine or paracrine. They're not really a hormone that's circulating through the blood, but it's a hormone that's released in that specific area, and that's directly associated with inflammation, and therefore pain. And so one of the things that we found with breathing exercises for my own health is that not only my health, but with my patients, is that we're not only increasing our ATP production and energy, we're also decreasing inflammation and pain. Are there any studies out there that show that? Hopefully. But our experience is what we offer to our students so that they can not only increase their energy, decrease inflammation and pain, but also eliminate waste, make sure their pH is relatively normal, and increase not only their respiratory endurance, but also the endurance of their muscles and the endurance of just everyday living. If we have a higher percentage of mitochondria in the muscles and in the liver, and we exercise our systems in a way, even if it's just through breathing, then we're able to affect our energy level, our health, control pain in some ways. Try the breathing exercises first, and then perhaps if that's not working, then we look at looking at our NSAIDs or aspirin, ibuprofen, things like that. Okay, any questions? So far, I know we're kind of getting in deep with all of these things, but wouldn't it be more fun to actually see the lovely Jill Michael demonstrating these breathing exercises? So we'll do this laying down as well as seated, okay?